let's say we move into, move is probably the wrong word, move could be the right word actually. We move into a higher state of awareness that allows us or actually stimulates us to look at things much more in energetic terms than in solid object terms, put it that way, then one consequence of that is less need to name things, to label things, because it becomes not necessarily an amorphous mass, but it becomes less important for us to call that a sofa or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. Because it's not. It's a sort of, it's an energy thing, and we use it or we don't. So that then has the propensity, it seems to me, to reduce the number of words that we need anyway, and therefore, if you take that to its logical extreme, you actually condense the language to actually what you need to express what you know in that awareness. So the higher the awareness, it seems to me, the less words you need.
Well, I like what you're saying. And perhaps we should move away from, certain kind of objects like sofas and
that would
we
just
might think, well, actually,
that
it is actually, it's really useful to be able to
examples.
Say, but in terms of the communication that matters, and what is the communication that matters? I would say this brings us back to the issue of relationships.
Yes.
It's, me expressing my love and caring, for you.
Yeah.
And that, I'd rather be judged on my intent than necessarily every one of my words, which can come out all fumbled and easily carry some kind of contradiction or.
Does that matter to you?
No, but it's not so much that it matters to me, but if we're always kind of analysing each other's words in the cold context.
Yes.
You use this word why didn't you use this word when you were talking to me like that?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And then the question is, do the words belie the actual intent? Or was it just a slip? Is it a Freudian slip? Is it a slip that actually really indicates what you're truly thinking, and therefore I should be attentive to the words, because that way I'll really get to grips with what you're thinking about me. Now, my feeling is that the Freudian slips are at a surface level, and if you always deal with someone else and how they're dealing with you in terms of the surface, I think that you'll always find room for offence.
Yeah.
And thinking that I think there's more scope.
Always.
Not always. I'm sorry.
Word,
but I think that there's more scope for getting offended.
Okay.
Well,
it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I don't want to sort of spoil your example, but the point I was making earlier is that I won't be offended unless there's already something in me that is willing to be offended. That's the point.
Maybe, and I accept that's true. But at least if we're kind of trying to see beyond the initial words and even the psychology which might have generated those words, and actually seeing into someone's heart and knowing and trusting their heart and their actual connection with us and their relationship, at a much deeper level, then I'm not going to be so fussed if you kind of said a bad word or gave me a wrong look or something which might belie kind of surface psychology, which really is not helpful in me kind of developing my kind of deeper relationship.
What I would say is, going sort of slightly backwards in a sense, but what I would say is what amazes me is the number of people who do get upset by words, just words, Now, do you remember, I don't know, when you were a kid, do you remember we used to have a saying in the playground, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right? What happened to that in adult life? I was saying to someone the other day, I'm thinking of bringing this back, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And yet so many adults...
But the reason that words hurt...
What went wrong? Why do words hurt then?
Because we attribute...
we attribute
too much meaning.
Intent to it.
We attribute intent.
Yes.
and we say that if for instance, if you say, you know, you rotter, then I think he doesn't like me. You know?
Yeah, so it's your interpretation
It's my
of the words.
you know,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
taking
yeah.
that is symptomatic of your dislike of me,
Yeah.
and therefore I'm now devoid of love.
Now let me tell you where I think what I said earlier comes in here. It's only because you have some doubt, and I don't want to be personal here. It's only because you already have some doubt that I don't like you, or I may not like you, that surfaces. If you were totally convinced and that, you know, Glenn thinks I'm great, blah, 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 nothing I would say or could say would make any difference.
And that you're absolutely right. It comes down to the kind of the individual's willingness to trust.
Yes.
You know, and in order to trust, then I'm actually seeing beyond the words, seeing beyond the...
Well, it's more than trust, isn't it? It's actually acceptance. It's accepting the other person. Yeah. It's more than trust. It's like accepting the other person, and, you know, whatever actually, I say, I can't hurt you.
It's more than accepting. You know, it's actually knowing.
It's knowing. Yes.
It's, you know, I'm at the level where I know someone.
Yes. So do you know me well enough, Martin, to trust me?